Do people with borderline personality disorder play mind games with you when they're in romantic relationships with you? Do they plan out ways to mess with your head? We're going to talk about that in this video. Hi, this is Mike, and this is the One Thing That Heals BPD and NPD Abuse channel, where I tell you the one thing that will completely heal you from the pain of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abuse pain in romantic relationships does not go away simply because the relationship has ended. It will continue, and I talk about exactly what that is in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend, and I also tell you exactly what to do to heal. You can find it on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. So your borderline girlfriend or boyfriend, husband, wife, do they consciously plan out mind games against you? The answer to that question is meaningless, because the end result is you experience the relationship as if they did. And that's all that matters. Wanting to find out what their motivation was for their behavior, complete waste of your time. It will not make you feel any better. It will not give you any control. It will not give you an ability to find a way to avoid it. Whether they choose to do it or don't choose to do it is completely irrelevant to you. Now, if you're a psychologist or a psychiatrist, then you want to know those kinds of things. But being in a romantic relationship, the result for you is going to be the same. So I was watching a video about borderline personality disorder, because I like to do a little bit of research. Find what other people are saying about it. And it was a video that said something like the 4 myths about borderline personality disorder. And they went in to say, myth number 4, borderlines play mind games with you. They manipulate you. And then it went right into some people who were recovering from BPD. Good for them. They're in therapy. I have nothing but praise for them for doing that. And they were saying, sometimes people think that we manipulate them, but what's really going on is that we have really intense emotions that are coming from places of fear, and that makes us do things that are self-destructive. They completely bypassed the entire question. The assumption behind that video is that, we can't stigmatize the mentally ill, meaning you can't hold them responsible, or you can't even touch the subject of whether or not they meant to do it or chose to do it. It's either they didn't because, as that, borderline said, I have these really intense feelings that give me impulses I can't control, which are really destructive to me, he says. He doesn't talk about anybody else. Or, it just bypasses the question altogether. But again, the end result for you as the partner of the borderline is exactly the same. So let's give them a scenario where we give them the benefit of the doubt, hypothetically, that they don't choose to manipulate you, that she's not saying to herself, this is really going to screw with his head. Let's just assume she's not doing that. I say she, I talk about BPD, all BPDs is she, even though they can, seems to be equally male and female. That's a whole other subject. But does she say to herself, I am going to just screw with his head or not? Let's just assume that she doesn't say that. From your perspective, here's what you know. So you are with a borderline, and this doesn't matter what kind of borderline you're with, whether this is a quiet borderline, whether this is a borderline who has comorbid NPD, whether it's a borderline who when they get upset, they get very vocal and abusive physically or verbally, or whether they just ghost you, it doesn't matter. The one thing that will be the same is that they will make you their favorite person in the beginning, which means that they will regress to an infantile state where they see you as the almighty God parent whose job is to regulate their emotions. They will pretend to be, or they will strive to be, the perfect worshiper, the perfect compliant child, but they're doing it for not because they care about you simply because you exist. They are doing it primarily because they are an infant wanting to secure love so they won't die. That's going to happen no matter what kind of borderline you're with. Comorbid, innocent, non-comorbid, however you want to look at it. The other thing that's going to happen is that when the intimacy becomes too intense for them, again, they are going to trigger your response. You're going to have the exact same response they are. You are going to see the borderline as the almighty mother figure that is coming to nurture and love you. That's going to trigger an infantile regressive response within you, and you are going to bond to that borderline as though she is your mother, and you will feel, your nervous system will tell you that you need her in order to survive. So now you've got two people that are seeking the same thing, and they're both transferring onto the other the same job. So serious problems are about to happen. The intimacy for you will draw you closer. The intimacy will trigger her fear response, because even though she wants intimacy more than anything else, it is also her kryptonite. It is the thing that she is most frightened of, because she will then realize that she's now vulnerable to you and you might hurt her. She can't tolerate that thought. And so she's going to seek to have complete control over you. And then she's also going to feel as though she's losing herself. Now, that was her initial desire to start with. She wanted to completely lose herself in your almighty, godlike parental love, which is what infants do. They completely lose themselves in their mother. The borderline can't allow herself to do that, because if she does, it then triggers all of the unresolved pain, like I'm about to die, I hate you for abandoning me. All that stuff comes up. You know the response of that. That is called splitting and devaluing and discarding. So at the very least, they will split on you and they will devalue you. And they can do it in all kinds of different ways depending on their personality. So the one thing that's true is that there isn't one type of borderline in terms of how they respond, in terms of like their specific negative response. The one thing they will all do is they will all transfer onto you, which means you don't exist, and they will transfer onto you and make you their favorite person. They will then split on you, because the intimacy will trigger all of those responses I just said, and they will devalue you. They will devalue you in all kinds of different ways, and then they will hoover you back. That is what will happen with every borderline. How they do it totally depends on their personality. But the one thing that doesn't change is that favorite person, splitting, devaluation, discard. Those things don't change, and hoover. So I guess I just came up with 4 steps. Favorite person, splitting, devaluation, discard. 5, whatever, you got it. That's going to happen with every single borderline, no matter what. But some borderlines are going to react really antisocially. They are going to be very vocal. They're going to turn around and just scream and yell at you to your face in public. They might become physically aggressive. They might slash your tires. They might seek to cause all kinds of harm and take revenge on you in all kinds of horrible ways. They might not do anything. Mine was a quiet borderline. When she split, it took me a while to figure it out, but when she split, she would get this look on her face. And then she would pretend everything was okay. And then she would say, oh, yeah, right. But then she'd sort of lean back in the chair and she'd be really distant. And what she'd do is she'd wait until the next day. And then she would devalue and split on me and discard me. The thing is, it doesn't matter. You're still going to feel like you got screwed with. You're not going to understand what's going on because their behavior is not going to make any sense. They're going to reach out to you. They're going to love bomb you. They're going to make you feel completely loved, seen, and accepted more than anybody ever has. And then they are going to suddenly and completely turn on you. They'll either disappear on you. They will go and hide in bed for 2 weeks. They will go off to Mexico. They will go to Vegas and screw your asshole cousin, or they will get in your face and yell at you. They will do something that will make you very confused and extremely hurt. And that's exactly what happens when somebody messes with your head, when somebody manipulates you. So whether or not they choose to do it or don't choose to do it is irrelevant. And that video, while I appreciate, those borderlines who are saying, it's not that I'm manipulating you, I just have all of these emotions that make me act impulsively, and it doesn't matter. If you're the romantic recipient, it doesn't matter. Because here's the truth of it all. The assumption behind that video is that you're just supposed to understand. Oh, they're borderline. They can't help it. Oh, I'm not going to take this personally. They're just having a moment. And then the assumption is that if you just sit back, then they'll come back and everything will be okay. And it won't. It's not going to be okay. Even if they change their mind and come back. My borderline girlfriend, she was trying really hard. Listen, here's the thing. My borderline girlfriend really, really wanted to make it work. She wasn't trying. She did not plan out to destroy me. She did not plan out to hurt me more than any other person ever has in my entire life. She wasn't planning on doing that. In fact, she would catch herself. When she was able to, she would catch herself. She would act out in really crazy ways, and she would split on me, and then she would catch herself. And she would say, I'm sorry, I just had a moment. She really wanted to. She knew that something was wrong, and she knew that she had to change her behavior. And she did. She used to be one of those people when she was younger that yelled and screamed and did all those horrible things. And she said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to be mean to people. But the problem is she still had a mental illness. She didn't have the ability to see her incredibly inappropriate self-defense responses come up. She didn't have the ability to know the difference between her paranoid fantasies and reality. That's called psychosis. And that's because she had a mental illness. She had made some improvement in her behavior. And to her credit, the first time that she split on me, devalued me, and discarded me, she didn't yell and scream and accuse me of growing horns, and she did that later. But her first response was, after having you've been there, the love bombing and the beautiful sex and the wonderful pillow talk and how close you are, and then her telling me over and over again, you're the best person, you treat me better than anybody, I'm never going to leave you, I'm going to make you so happy, I'm going to be the best girlfriend you ever had, I appreciate you so much. And then me going off to sleep, and then the next day she calls me and says, sorry, but I had a dream about you, and in the dream you did bad things to me, and so I don't feel good about this relationship, and I can't trust you, and I can't have any contact with you ever again. Click. She didn't yell. She didn't scream. She was perfectly cogent when she said it. She was trying to do it in a way she thought was, with empathy and kindness. It didn't change anything. My feelings at the moment were exactly the same as if she had stood up and thrown a cup across the room and yelled at me and accused me of doing black magic on her to try and fill her with demons and destroy her life. It's the same exact response. It doesn't change anything. Was she in her mind? Was she trying to manipulate me? No. But she's not the only kind of borderline out there. Her symptoms are exactly the same. The core symptoms are identical. Her personality, is different than somebody else. There are borderlines who want to do, just like people, there are people that want to do the right thing, and there are selfish people who are willing to break the rules and, screw people over. There are human people. There are human beings who don't have personality disorders who will lie, steal, betray, cheat on you, but doesn't mean they have a personality disorder. There are borderlines that will want to lie, cheat, and steal, and they also have a personality disorder. So, do some of them go out of their way to manipulate you and lie to you? Yes. Are some of them more dishonest than others? Yes. Are they going to perhaps cause more damage to your physical life? Yes. But are they any different in terms of you feeling like you got messed with, like you got manipulated? No, it's exactly the same. And here's my point. You're trying to figure out whether or not they wanted or were choosing to manipulate you is coming from your desire to be loved by your mother, in this case, the borderline. You're still trying to get it to work. There's three major responses. I'll have to make an entire video on this, but there are three major responses to the borderline from the victim based on the denial that is built into you. They also entrain you to go into a state of denial. We talk about the trauma pause that I've coined on this channel. So there's three ways that you are going to show your denial, which will cause you more pain. First one is trying to diagnose and understand the diagnosis. This is when I get, very annoyed with people who want to figure out, did my borderline, did she have narcissistic tendencies? Was she comorbid? Was she a borderline, or was she a covert narcissist, which is all the same thing? You might as well be saying, was she a borderline or was she a BPD? Did she have BPD or was she a borderline? It's the same thing. Covert narcissism is another word for borderline personality disorder. Vulnerable narcissism is another word for personality disorder. Secondary psychopath is another word for borderline personality disorder. There is no such thing as comorbid. I don't give a crap what the DSM says. It doesn't matter. Their mindset, this is the part you don't get. Their motive is meaningless because they are psychotic. They don't know the difference when they're triggered between objective reality and their internal reality. They don't know the difference. That's called psychosis. And that means they're going to act psychotically, which means they're going to act irrationally, and they're going to act in ways that are destructive to everybody, including themselves. So that poor borderline who was saying, trying to get rid of the stigma, do you manipulate people? No, it's just that I have all these really intense feelings that make me act in ways that are destructive to myself. You might as well be saying, yeah, I'm psychotic and I'm going to decide that you're out to kill me, and I'm going to do things to protect myself that will be extremely confusing and destructive to you, even though you haven't done anything to deserve it. I mean, stigmatize them, don't stigmatize them. The same thing is true. If they are untreated, there is treatment, and they can have relationships if they put the time into it. But, that's very rare. And as far as you're concerned, you have to assume the only thing they're going to be able to do in a romantic relationship is destroy you, because borderline personality disorder is the most explosive. They have the least ability to resist their psychotic impulses within a romantic relationship. Maybe they're okay at work, maybe they're okay at school, maybe they're okay as friends. But in romantic relationships, if they are untreated, undiagnosed, and or don't have any recovery, the one thing you can guarantee is that they will hurt you more than anybody ever has. It's just the way it works. So you're going to have three ways to respond, which will keep you in denial. The first one is to diagnose, try to understand the diagnosis. Is she borderline? Is she comorbid? You're trying to figure out if she has empathy or not, because you think if she has empathy, then she will change and she can love you. So it all comes down to you are still hoping that someday you can get them to love you. And it means you don't understand the nature of their mental illness. Second way is by being angry and demanding that the borderline be held responsible, and saying, coming on my channel and saying that I'm making excuses for them. I've never made an excuse for a borderline in my entire life. Me saying that BPD is the worst possible mental illness I think anybody can have, and if it were up to me, I would snap my fingers, and if I had to get rid of one disease, it would be BPD. The fact that I have compassion for how painful it is and that I know that they can't help themselves in no way justifies anything that they do, and in no way should you get involved and stay with them and have any contact with them. Does that sound like I'm making excuses for them? I don't think so. But by being angry and demanding that the borderline be held responsible, it means that the reason why you get angry with me when I say that they have a mental illness and they can't help it, the reason why you want to say that I'm giving them a pass is because you can't tolerate the thought that they really can't control their actions. Because if they can't control their actions, it means they will never love you. And you're angry because of that. You're furious at them. Don't get me wrong. I am not trying to minimize your pain. They may have completely destroyed your life, stolen all of your money, put you in jail wrongly. They do that kind of stuff. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they didn't do things that deserve outright rage. But the fact that you stay angry means two things. That you are still in trauma pause mode, which means that you feel the one love that you need to survive is being denied you, and so you have an infantile temper tantrum. And at the same time, you are in denial over the fact that they will never love you. So whether or not you are making excuses for them, or whether or not you are so furious at them and you can't tolerate the thought that they didn't have any mental control over what they were doing, means that you are in denial over the fact they will never love you. The third response that I'm aware of is people going numb. So when people don't have any feelings, they're like, yeah, no, I'm not aware of my anger. I'm just kind of numb. This means that you have surrendered yourself to the abusive cycle because you think there is no other way out. Your victimization has gone to such an extreme, almost psychotic level. Your neurosis has developed to such a degree that you believe that your only value comes from being a victim, and that you still have some hope that if you are a good enough victim and if you tolerate enough abuse, and you are long-suffering enough and you don't allow yourself to be angry, because that's not good. A good boy doesn't ever get angry at mommy. If you go completely numb, it means that you're still waiting for them to love you, and you think by being a masochist that eventually you will manipulate them into loving you, because they will go, see, he's not going to react or rebel against my authority against them, and he's going to let me abuse him, and so therefore I'm going to keep him. And that's why the ones that go numb are one of the ones that stay the longest. Even though they get discarded, they always get hoovered back because they've gone numb. So it all comes down to your denial. And your denial isn't, don't take it personally. If I say, sometimes I'm a little harsh with the mirror and I say, you're full of crap. Don't take that personally. It means that you're not completely aware of what's happening, that you are in fact lying to yourself. You are an infant. You are a regressed infant, and you are desperate for mommy's love because you understandably, and your nervous system believes if she doesn't love you, you'll die. So you will come up with any justification to keep the connection going in the hope, because if the child isn't able to get mommy to love you, you could die. I mean, in times past, if your parents didn't, pick you up as they walked out of the cave, you'd die. So you need mommy and daddy's love or you will die. That is what your nervous system tells you. So the denial is not unnatural. You're not a bad person. It's normal. However, it is still neurotic and it is irrational. And it shows a complete misunderstanding. If you can accept in your deepest heart of hearts, in your deepest mind, if you can accept they don't see you, they never have seen you, they don't love you, they never have loved you, not because they don't want to, but because they're just not capable of getting past their own fear response and their own trauma. And the closer you get to them, that your strategy of whatever it is you're trying to do to break down their defenses so that they will finally accept you and love you, that there is literally nothing anybody can do that will ever make them feel safe and convince them to act in a loving way. Everything that you do is only setting you up for more pain. When you've been with a borderline, what you find out is that unlike in non-disordered relationships, even with people who have issues, there's no shortage of non-disordered people who have fear of relationships and, run away from love. But the fact is that they can be convinced over time. The more that you get to know them, the more they get to see that your behavior is trustworthy, and then they can fall in love with you, even after rejecting you a few times. This is typical with men and women. Men are afraid of commitment until they finally realize, oh, this is actually what I want. Okay, I want to do this. Let's get married. The borderline's never going to do that. The closer you get to them, the deeper they will pull their tentacles into you, and then the harsher they will reject you. Until it gets to the point where there's only one thing left to do, which is the final discard. And when there is no space left in them to tolerate your love, and you have no more ability to regulate their feelings, and you are now at the same level that she is, and you have now been victimized to the point where you basically are a borderline, then the only choice that she will have is to discard you permanently. And that is the ultimate end result of all romantic relationships with borderlines, unless they get into therapy. And if they do get into therapy, and if they start to recover, they're probably still going to reject you, because they will come to realize that you are a codependent and that you are projecting and transferring onto them, and they will realize that you don't see them either, and they will still reject you. So if you can accept that, that is the first step to healing. Now, accepting that won't heal you, because that conscious understanding that she can never love you, she's only going to hurt me, she has a mental illness, she can't do anything different, none of that is going to change the response of your regressed nervous system, which is in a PTSD state, and you're suffering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are neurotic, and you are still fighting with reality, and your nervous system will override any conscious awareness. Your cognitive dissonance will not stop your nervous system from forcing you to think about them, to wait for them, to pine for them, even reach out to them, and or let them hoover you. You won't be able to stop it. I've been in 12-step work my entire adult life, and I've been in therapy for almost 30 years now, and I can remember, after the second or third split and discard, I can remember my head saying, man, she's bad news. She's only going to hurt you. You are in a really codependent state right now. This is very bad. Look at how bad you feel. And I remember saying to myself, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to respond to her. If she calls me, she's calling right now. Hello? Oh, do you want to come over? Okay, bye. I had no resistance. It's because of the trauma bond. You can't think your way out of it. There's only one way out. Time will not heal you, and it's what I talk about on this channel. I talk about it in my book, How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. So you get the book, read the book, follow my instructions. Here's what I've found. I'm not lying to you here. I'm not exaggerating. Every single person that has followed all of my instructions to the letter has healed. Within weeks, within a couple of months, completely healed. They've been in pain for 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. They follow my suggestions, and within a couple of months, they're completely healed of the pain. Do you want that? Now, you're probably not going to do that. Do you want to know why? Because your nervous system is locked in this trauma. You're trying to save your life, and following my suggestions is going to make your nervous system and your unconscious mind rebel against you, which is why I get the worst trolling from codependents than I do from borderlines. Borderlines like my channel. Some that are getting help, a lot don't, but some that are in recovery like my channel. Great. I get the worst trolling from the non-disordered victims because their nervous system is going to make me out to look like I'm the asshole. And they accuse me of victim blaming and all kinds, and I'm literally handing you the cure. But you gotta do it. Doesn't cost you a thing. You can do it from home. There's no reason not to do it, except that you're still attached to the thought that I want her to love me, and the thought of her not loving you is so painful. You can't tolerate the thought of healing from that. So that's it for me. Does your borderline girlfriend play mind games on you? The question is, it doesn't matter. You will experience it as though it was the worst mind game you've ever experienced from somebody. And the truth is that some of them do play mind games with you, and they know that they're doing it, and some don't. And then there's all kinds of stuff in the middle. I have 2 links I put into the description, which are from borderlines that tell you how they played mind games with their partners and other people for that matter. And then you'll find out that there's no such thing as BPD, comorbid NPD. You'll find that borderlines are people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder, that they don't have any empathy when they're triggered. They are sociopathic, and you'll never know. You'll never know if they're just having a moment or if they really are getting off on abusing you with mind games, manipulation. Look at the links below. That's it. Get the book. If you want me to make a video about your situation, if you want me to make a video addressing your specific question, go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. I'll make a video at least 10 minutes long responding to your question. And if you want a private session with me, I'll videotape that and put it up on the channel. Go to askmike.thunderwizard.com. Audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. How I Survived My Borderline Girlfriend. That's it. See you guys next time.